God's mercy is for everyone. Romans chapter 11, verse 25 through 36.
I want you to understand this mystery, dear brothers and sisters, so that you will not feel proud about yourselves. Some of the people of Israel have hard hearts, but this will last only until the full number of Gentiles comes to Christ, and so all Israel will be saved. As the scriptures say, the one who rescues will come from Jerusalem, and he will turn Israel away from ungodliness. And this is my covenant with them, that I will take away their sins. Many of the people of Israel are now enemies of the good news, and this benefits you Gentiles. Yet they are still the people he loves, because he chose their ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For God's gifts and his call can never be withdrawn. Once you Gentiles were rebels against God, but when the people of Israel rebelled against him, God was merciful to you instead. Now they are the rebels, and God's mercy has come to you, so that they, too, will share in God's mercy. For God has imprisoned everyone in disobedience, so he can have mercy on everyone. Oh, how great are God's riches and wisdom and knowledge! How impossible is it for us to understand his decisions and his ways? For who can know the Lord's thoughts? Who knows enough to give him advice? And who has given him so much that he needs to pay it back? For everything comes from him and exists by his power and is intended for his glory. All glory to him forever. Amen.
The church is being used by God to make Israel jealous, but the church has not taken the place of Israel. The day will come when God will deal with Israel as a nation once again, and the Jews will turn back to God and acknowledge Jesus as their Messiah. At the end of the church age, after the Lord raptures his church, he will once again focus on Israel, for the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. God will still keep his unconditional promises to Israel. In this passage, Paul shows how the Jews and the Gentiles benefit each other. Whenever God shows mercy to one group, the other shares the blessing. In God's original plan, the Jews would be the source of God's blessing to the Gentiles. See Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. When the Jews neglected this mission, God blessed the Gentiles anyway through the Jewish Messiah. He still maintained his love for the Jews because of his promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The privileges and invitation of God given to Israel will never be withdrawn. But someday, all faithful Jews will share in God's mercy. God's plan will never be thwarted. He will have mercy on everyone, for a beautiful picture of Jews and Gentiles experiencing rich blessings. See Isaiah chapter 60. The implication of these questions is that no one has fully understood the mind of the Lord. No one has been his counselor, and God owes nothing to any of us. Isaiah and Jeremiah asked similar questions to show that we are unable to give advice to God or criticize his ways. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 13, and Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 18. As Paul reflected on God's incredible plan of redemption, how he saved the Gentiles and will still keep his promises to Israel, he was overwhelmed. We don't always understand what God is doing, as his ways are so much higher than ours. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 9. But as his plan unfolds, we are amazed at the brilliance of his strategy. Don't question God, just watch him. God alone is the possessor of absolute power and absolute wisdom. In the final analysis, all of us are absolutely dependent on God. He is the source of all things, including ourselves. He is the power that sustains and rules the world that we live in. And God works out all things to bring glory to Himself. The all-powerful God deserves our praise.